In this problem, we are asked to add two rational algebraic expressions. The first and most common mistake that students who haven't studied much generally make is that they start trying to cancel out factors that look alike, such as the w with the w. Well, in the first place, the w in the denominator is not a factor. We can only cancel out factors. The w in the denominator is a term because it is separated from the 2 with a plus sign. When you have plus or minus signs in the numerator or denominator, you can't simply just cancel out. What we must do is get a least common denominator. You should have learned this starting back in the 4th grade, that you can't add fractions unless they have the same denominator. In order to do so, we must first find the least common denominator and do so by factoring all the denominators. The denominator w squared minus 4 is the difference of squares. It factors as w plus 2 times w minus 2. If you are not proficient at factoring, you should go back and become proficient at factoring before you attempt rational expressions. You will not be able to do this without being able to factor well. The first denominator is prime. It cannot be factored. So the next step must be to find our least common denominator now that everything is factored. We must have one of every factor found in all the denominators involved. The first factor will be w plus 2. The next factor we see is again w plus 2, but we don't need to repeat, so we don't pick up the w plus 2. However, the w minus 2 is unique, and we should use the w minus 2. So our least common denominator will be w plus 2 times w minus 2. Now we must convert each of the fractions into a fraction with this denominator. To convert the first fraction to a fraction with the denominator w plus 2 times w minus 2, we must multiply its denominator by w minus 2. And of course, we will have to also multiply the numerator by w minus 2 to avoid changing the value of the fraction. The second fraction already has the common denominator, so there is no more work to do on it. The next thing we do to simplify our work a little bit is notice that there is a minus sign with this numerator, and that we can bring it out in front of the fraction without changing the value of the fraction. What does this do for us? Well, we know that plus minus is actually just a minus, and we can replace it with just a minus sign. Now our work is much more simple. Remember that to add or subtract fractions, we simply add or subtract the numerators, not the denominators. So we get w minus 8 over the common denominator. Since there is no further factoring to do, and there are no common factors in the numerator or denominator, then our work is done. This is the answer in fully simplified form.